Welcome back to the TackleTime podcast. I'm your host. My name is Nate. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming back. I hope you guys are enjoying the episodes. If you guys have feedback, anything that in particular you'd like to see, guests you'd like to have on, shoot me a message. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, on the website. All the contact info is there. So if you have anything you want to get in touch with me about, or if you want to become a guest, be sure to get in touch with us so we can get you scheduled and get you on. Love to have you. This week, we are talking to Brandon Tatum, who a few years ago started making his own wooden lures. I think when people think of wooden lures, they think of, I don't know, the 60s, 70s, cheap lures, and those were a thing way back when. Kind of fallen by the wayside, but as a more of a hobby than anything. And Brandon has really come a long way with the craft of making his own lures and really enjoys the process. So I thought it'd be a really cool, different perspective to get somebody on who makes them from wood and how all that works. So we're gonna get into the episode. Before we do, if you're new here, one thing that Tackle Time and Tackle Buys tries to do is save you tons of money. So fishing gear is expensive, costs a lot of money to get a lot of gear. So the next time you're looking to buy a new gear, whether it be a new rod, a fish finder, new line, even something even small, hooks, lures, whatever it is, check out tacklebuys.com. TackleBuys compiles thousands and thousands of sale listings from across the internet to help bring you the best deals so you can pick the best products at the best price. So if you're looking for a new rod, you're not sure which one you want, or a new combo, check them out. There's tons and tons of deals on there right now from partners all across the web. So we're going to get into this episode. What's up, guys? This is Nate, and I'm here with Brandon tonight. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Tackle Time podcast. Brandon, say hello. Introduce yourself, brother.
Hey, my name's Brandon. I'm from North Carolina. Nice to talk to everybody.
Brandon is on with us tonight. We're going to be talking about Brandon's journey, making some of his own lures, modifying some of his own in the process, and maybe modifying a few off-the-shelf lures and what we can maybe all take away from that. So Brandon, how did you bust into the fishing scene? How did you get your start? Was it real young or real recent? How did that all start for you?
Okay. Well, I started fishing probably as early as I can remember. I've always fished with my dad, my grandpa. Basically, all my great uncles and my grandfather had John boats, so we'd go out on the rivers and camp on the islands and the riverbanks when I was a kid. So I grew up brim fishing and just kind of fishing for whatever, definitely doing a lot of catch, cook, kind of stuff.
Sure.
So definitely started at a very, very young age and always enjoyed it. And the older I got, the more that intensified.
Did you learn to fish, near where you are now, or have you moved?
Yeah, I've moved pretty much from my hometown. I'm probably about an hour and a half away. So on the weekends, I do actually go back home a lot and fish a lot of the places that I grew up fishing. So,
Wow, that's awesome. Now, from what you were saying, or we were talking before we started here, you do at least some saltwater fishing. Is that something you like to do a lot of?
yeah, it's definitely grown on me. So I moved to a city called Wilmington here in North Carolina, and it's basically right on the coast. So when I moved here for maybe the first 3 years that I was here, I didn't really do any saltwater fishing as it was all around me. But I'd always travel back on the weekends and go home and visit my friends, and we'd always fish for bass, or I would go to one of my other favorite spots that has chain pickerel and just fish for a bunch of different freshwater species, or go to the river and stuff like that.
No, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So we were talking before, and you mentioned chain pickerel at least a couple of times. That's something that sounds like you've been going after for a while now at this point.
Yeah, I'm definitely. There's a pond in White Oak, North Carolina, and it's kind of a rare place. It's I don't think that I've seen any other place that's quite like it compared to any other pond or any other water source in the state. Basically, it has rare pitcher plants. It's a carnivorous plant that grow there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't think they really grow in too many other places in North Carolina, if not the rest of the world, at least that species of pitcher plant. And there's just full of lily pads. It looks like it'd be bass paradise, but from what I've learned over the years of going there is that the water is very acidic thanks to all the tannins that come off of the cypress and the pine trees that surround the pond. So
Yeah.
the bass can't live there. So there's just a set few species between flyer, which is like, I don't know if a lot of people know about flyer.
Mm.
It's kind of like a dark gray and black kind of brim species,
Gotcha. Okay.
kind of an odd one. And then there's the chain pickerel, which can get, I think the largest one caught out of there recorded was maybe 24 or 25 inches.
Okay. That's a solid fish.
So yeah, they get kind of big, and they're not as big as the northern relatives, which I dream of catching one day along with muskie. So
Yeah,
they're,
definitely.
they're kind of a future target species. But other than the chain pickerel and the flyer, there's also yellow perch, black bullhead catfish, and I've been told that there are warmouth in there, which is kind of a mix between brim and a bass. If people don't know what they are.
No, I've never heard of those before.
Yeah, warmouth. They're like a dark olive green and brown and gold kind of color, and they really resemble like a miniature bass, almost a lot kind of. I would say it looks mostly like a smallmouth bass, but mixed with a brim kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's super interesting. I think what you're describing, a lot of guys could get a lot from is, they're out there and they might be few and far between, but the weird lakes or the weird ponds that have a totally different ecosystem than your normal bass ponds are a cool little safe haven to catch some cool fish. So that's something I think we could all benefit from looking out for.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful place. It's a state park as well, so it's also what am I saying? Like a hunting reserve, more or less.
Okay.
It's one of the state parks, so you can hunt deer, duck, dove, just a numerous amount of species. It's also a black bear reserve as well, so there's a lot of black bears there. So
Wow.
yeah, just a very, very interesting place overall.
Sounds like a place I want to be. Sounds like where I
Yeah,
want to go, man.
yeah,
I'm up for that. That sounds
yeah.
awesome.
I go in the spring and summer. I'm there almost every other weekend. Every other weekend I have off, I'm pretty much taking a
Nice.
trip out there, and I'm spending 2 days on the water.
So I figure I ask, what are you finding the most success catching chain pickerel near you as far as lure?
Now the best things that I've used for them are mixed between. I'll start off with rooster tails. I think that was one of the first baits I ever threw at them. So
Gotcha.
spinner baits,
Mhm.
and the colors between chartreuse and red. But game warden told me once when I was out there that they love the color red. So I took that and I really, just remembered that and kept that in my mind, because later on I started realizing that spoons worked almost better, because as far as most, pike or pickerel fishermen will understand, is that they hunt not only visually but with their lateral line. So
Yeah.
they're going to be going after anything that's creating vibration in the water, or movement, or also sight. So I mean, a lot of flash and a lot of vibration is definitely going to catch you a pike or a
Yeah,
pickerel.
gotcha. Yeah, sure.
So spoons, I started using the Met Cyclops, and I would modify them as well. Let's see, get some out of this box here. So this is kind of the original like Met Cyclops, and I'd taken red fingernail polish and basically put some stripes on it to mimic the perch that are in the water. And
That's
you can see
awesome.
it's kind of beat up. This one's kind of old and been taken by a lot of fish. In the eye, there's actually one eye that's usually on there, but it's kind of came off. I think here we go. Here's a brand new one, so you can kind of see the reference. Met Cyclops.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, either that or the kind of slightly modified. They go nuts for either one. So
That's awesome, man.
oh yeah.
No, that's a great tip. I mean, anybody down your way, I mean, I have no idea how it would work this far north because fishing is so local, but yeah, it's worth a shot, definitely. No,
Yeah.
and I think that kind of segues into to some of what we're talking about tonight is, modifying at least a little bit of your gear, and and you make a lot of your gear on your own for your lures, but we were going to talk about at least modifying some portion of equipment to maybe get the most out of your gear, and that's a great example. Is it could be as simple as a little bit of nail polish, and you're off to the races.
The same with the Johnson Sprite on the backside. I put some dots on one of them. And the original color is just kind of like a red and orange, but the dots are
Nice.
added right there, the red dots. So just some extra flashes to kind of mimic the bait fish that are in the environment. And here's what I brought up earlier. That was to mimic the Cajun sleigh that I found and lost. Was basically the front end. Basically, I took one of the Met Cyclops lures, and then basically ordered a kit to make my own basically spinners. So basically threw on a Colorado blade. So this will basically flutter, and give a lot of flash behind. And then you also have the Colorado blade that's spinning and putting off the vibration. So those
Yeah,
are
you
some
know
of the
what,
best.
Brandon, if you would, tell the story again, how that all kind of came about, because I think it's a great intro as to why you even built that.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, went to a local saltwater bait shop and found a lure that was, let me see, it's basically this lure right here. It's a weedless spoon, but on the top end of it, it basically had the setup that I created myself here. So it looked pretty much like that. And it was called
Gotcha.
a Cajun Sleigh. And basically, I got hooked into a really big pickerel, and he jumped out of the water and came right down on the line and bit the line off. And it was the only lure that I had. And I'd actually caught, I think, one of my personal best on that lure that day or the previous day. So I was really excited about the lure, and then very devastated when that fish bit it off. And I actually have a YouTube video out that actually I'm pretty sure that was, I think, one of my first videos that I think it was the first video I did. And that lure was in there and I was using it. It shows like the day before where I caught it, and then the next day it bites through the line. So after that, I was pretty much on a mission to remake that because I couldn't find it online. Like I looked everywhere and just could not find it. So I decided to kind of make my own.
Got it. Okay. And if you would share that again one more time, now that we
Sure.
all understand the story, as far as, why you went that far. And, obviously the lure was something that was really working for you. You were happy, it was really nice. And then you just couldn't find it. You poked around online looking for it and really couldn't do it. So you kind of made your own, right?
Yeah. So it was just a kit that I ordered on Amazon, and it basically comes with the wires. And I bent these myself and, made the loops and everything, trying to get the focus better here.
Yeah.
And you have, all these different metal pieces and the beads and all. So I just kind of mixed and matched and, basically made this and, attached it to an already pre-bought, spoon. Now I did make two versions of that. I'd use the Mep Cyclops with the treble hook. So this one's more for kind of like open areas that don't have a lot of like weed beds and lily pads. And then the other one I actually made, here it is. Let me see if I can get it unraveled here. How treble hooks go when they get in a box. So this was the other version. So this one's almost an exact replica of the Cajun Sleigh. Added some fingernail polish here to give it some perch stripes. But I mean, the perch stripes are yellow, but knowing that the pike love red, and it's already pretty much got a lot of gold on it. So, I mean, it kind of does the job. And I even went to the extent of putting some specks on the spoon as well. So just trying out different colors between gold and silver and just mixing those up.
No, okay, awesome. No, I think it's a perfect way to kind of get, for somebody who has a lure that really works and is in your position, that they lose it and can't find it again. It doesn't mean you can't remake it. I mean, I think a lot of people think that, making or modifying a lot of the stuff that's out there is really complicated. And I think it goes to show that it really isn't. It doesn't have to be. You can probably recreate damn near anything out there, with how easy it is to find the materials nowadays. I don't think that should hold anybody back.
Very true, very true. And it's the same with wooden lures. Like basically, once I got into making wooden lures, the possibilities are endless. You can, make jerk baits, walk the dog baits. You can make poppers. You can, pretty much remake anything that's out there with a little bit of practice.
Well, let's talk about that. That's a great way to get into that. So you've been making your own lures for a little while now. So tell us about that.
Okay, so been doing it about 2 years now, and basically I got into it, and it was kind of an epiphany to me. Basically, just scrolling through YouTube, random, and the algorithms. It threw a video up to me, and it was marlin baits. So I don't know if you know about him or if other people do, but if you hadn't heard of him, definitely check him out. He's an awesome guy, very, very informative, and very, very helpful if you intend to make lures yourself. So basically, watched his videos, and I was like, oh my goodness, I fished my entire life, and I never once thought, hey, I can make my own lures,
Yeah,
and it's
I think
just like, oh wow.
thinks that.
And so like once I realized that, I'm like, okay, my grandpa was a woodworker. I never really did much myself, did a little whittling here and there, but nothing major. So, watching his videos and showing it step by step and how simple it really is, you're just kind of like, oh wow, it's really not that hard. So definitely my first crack at it was not very successful. If I can just have a moment to look around, I might actually be able to find that first really ugly lure. Actually, here it is.
The first are always that way.
Yes. Almost embarrassing, So, don't be afraid to go after it. So I was fishing for pike and stuff. So I made a little really ugly little perch. And you can see he's kind of blocky. He doesn't have a great shape to him. As I now understand, there's a lot of things you want to do differently than what I did with this. And just using whatever materials I had at hand, some like eyelets, that you buy at a hardware store and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the first one that kind of started it.
And that's awesome, man. I salute you for getting started. That's sweet. I love it.
So after that, I realized, okay, let me try some different things. And as any process, you basically go through a learning curve. And the next one, I think this may be number 2. I may have made other ones, but I made a grasshopper poplar popper.
Wow, that's awesome.
So it's made out of poplar wood, and it's got a nice open mouth here.
Yeah.
And I tried to mimic a species that we have around here, and this actually caught me a bass right at the end of spring, I think, one of the first years I was making lures. So definitely put a lot of time carving in this one, a lot of detail, and then tried to take my time painting.
Yeah, it looks like you spent a friggin' month painting it, man. I mean, there's a lot of detail there.
Definitely, man. I enjoy painting. I went to school for art, so I mean, at first I'm just kind of playing around, but then once I became a little more serious with it, I started getting, a lot more in depth and realizing, okay, this is how you do this part, and you start layering, and it really starts coming together in time, but with anything, you definitely need some practice.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So show us kind of where it went from there.
All right, let's see. Got a bunch of different ones here. Here we go. If I can just get these treble hooks all undone, we'll show you one of the better lure designs. Now, I've made a lot of these now, and I really enjoy this shape. I started getting into jerk baits. Jerk baits became one of the best shapes for me. So this is one of my favorite shads.
Wow, looks like you went and bought that one off the shelf. You sure you didn't slip that in that box?
Nah, I got some bought ones in there, but this one I made.
That's awesome.
So
wow.
Definitely, I started using metallic paints. On the top, I have like some what is it? Tester. It's basically little spray paint cans that you can get for model cars. Some people probably know about it. And then started designing the lips a little better. Now the material was still pretty much just a divider from one of my clear plastic containers. Still just kind of using what I had offhand. And also, if you can tell, it has kind of a yellowish tint to it. It might be hard to pick up on here, but the yellowish tint is actually polyurethane. So I was just kind of using what I had at hand. Now, later on, I then started switching to epoxy, which is a much better alternative. It doesn't turn yellow after a time, and, it keeps its clear color. It looks really good in the end.
No, that's awesome. That's a great tip.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, definitely worth spending some money on some epoxy. And let's see. Here's some other. I was still using polyurethane at this time. Now this was I made a perch lure. This was my first 3-piece. So made the perch.
Awesome.
I keep saying perch. I mean pike. And that's because I basically heard that pickerel are territorial. So they will pretty much attack, their own species, just out of like keeping their territory and keeping their food around kind of thing. So tried that out, and then I wasn't too happy with this one, so I decided to remake it and really refine it. So here's a comparison.
Wow.
I actually added some fins and definitely improved.
Dang.
Quite a few things. So these were actually different, like separate wood inserts that I made.
Yeah, I figured.
Basically learning to started to make my own ties as well. Like the metal ties, you're basically taking I think at that time I was using crafting wire, and it held up against the fish that I, going after. Basically, you'll take a piece of wire, bend it over once, and then, you can either take a drill or 2 needle nose pliers and put it over some wire bending pliers. Basically, bend it over the wire so you have a circle, and then you just twist the other end. So you have like a twist wire, basically. So you would have like a circle at the end. So basically, you drill a hole into the body, and then insert that in and either super glue it or use epoxy or whichever you feel is going to hold. But from what I've used, I've never, had an eyelet come out or anything like that. So it's worked out fairly well. And then after a while, I then obtained some lexicarbonate, or basically a better lip material. So I actually got some actual material that you would use for lips.
Oh, okay.
So, and started designing different things. Like this one actually has like a little dent in the nose. Like
Yeah, I
just
see that.
trying out different things and trying to figure out what works better. And this one also is kind of an odd body style. Then I also got into spraying the scales on. That was one thing I learned from Marlon Bates videos. So taking any kind of mesh cloth and then like basically wrapping it around the body and having like a solid color down and then going over that lightly so you have some scale patterns.
That's awesome. No, it's funny. I love watching guys who make their own stuff on YouTube, and we actually had a guy who paints his own lures, and when we actually saw that on one of the videos, that was really cool. No, it's a fascinating process. I love watching that. It's totally awesome.
Yeah, it can take me a long time to really determine, like what steps you're going to take in order to get what color patterns that you want.
Sure. Yeah.
It definitely takes a lot of layering. Like we have a brim species around here called a pumpkin seed, and it's more for the shape more so than the color, but they do have a lot of orange and teal colors on them. And that was kind of my best take at that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's another jerk bait style. And that one works pretty good. Gets a nice S in the water. A lot of pretty colors. And those are like hand painted scales as well.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's really hard to tell. I can't really get it to pick up.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to get a good view on it.
I don't know. I can't get it to focus in on too well. But I mean, a lot of these have a lot more detail than what can really show up on here. But that's okay. The fish see it.
No, well, when they're that close, that's when you want.
Yes, exactly.
Don't need to worry about it on camera.
Yeah, because they're going to get the profile from a distance, but what really counts is when they're moments away from hitting it. They want to see that last little bit of detail, and I think that really makes a big difference. And here's kind of an improved perch over time.
Wow,
much better.
Yeah, I was gonna say perch. That's a huge transition over time. I mean, that's a long ways to come from some of your first baits. So, man, that's quite an improvement.
Yeah, definitely. Taking the time, and there's some more fin details and stuff like that.
Nice,
some bright oranges. Really trying to attract the attention of the pike. Just refining the methods and in which to go after the pike with. And here we go. Here's one of the latest baits. This one is a two-piece swim bait that I made a larger perch. So from that small jerkbait perch, I went to a different kind of colorway and tried to really mimic a lot more accurately the shape and the size and more of the colors that are actually on the perch that are in those waters. So they have a lot more gold and black that show up. And I also hand painted on some silver scales in there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Wow.
If you can just make out some of that sparkling color, I'm basically using some stuff called dragonfly glaze. And it basically puts in some real like light tints of glitter as well. So, I mean, just like real microscopic small stuff, but it really does a number for these baits. But there's the bottom side there, some fins.
Wow, that's awesome.
Looking into the pictures of the perch that I would take, they had some blues underneath the gill and everything, and some nice eyes there, nice yellow eyes.
Wow, you put a lot of time into that. That's I would feel so bad if I lost it after spending that much time on one of them.
I feel that way too sometimes. You definitely don't want to lose one, but at the same time, I think that's kind of the point of making your own lures.
You made it.
You lose one, you can make another.
Yeah. So how does the process work? I mean, if somebody wants to start doing this, I mean, do you make these by hand? Do you whittle them or do you cut them? I mean, how does that?
Well, for me, I don't really have a shop or anything yet. That's something I intend to get in the future. But at the moment, basically just taking a single block of wood, and that's very important as well. We'll start off with that, the wood. So there's many different woods that have different buoyancies and densities. Mm-hmm. Now, like basically balsa wood, that's a big one in Rapala. They use balsa wood a lot, but it is a very, very, very light, very, very buoyant, but it's not very dense. So it can break apart very easily. So when they make those lures, they do them as through wire. So you would basically take a single running wire, loop it up for one, and then basically have loops on the end, so it's one solid wire running through the middle. And Whereas the other harder baits, you don't have to do that. You don't have to cut them in half and lay that wire in the middle. You can basically just put your inserts in each side, and just have them as they are.
Sure. Yeah.
But beyond the wood, basically taking the block of wood, cutting out a stencil, and then you're going to take it from a 2-dimensional, like you see your side profile. So I would basically hand carve or saw off, any excess wood that I have and get the side profile. Then you're going to look at the top view, and you're not going to want it as a solid block as well. So you're then going to basically take the nose and kind of do an angle here and the tail like that as well. So bringing that from the center, evenly, or in some cases you may do it, kind of tapered differently depending on what you're trying to get done.
Yeah, sure.
But then after you've done that, you still have corners basically on it, like shoulders basically. So you want to chamfer those edges off, a 45-degree angle, like cut those, shave those down, and then hand sand it, my process, I'm hand sanding everything, hand carving everything. And then once you've basically sanded down the shape, then I might go to a lip. So you need to cut a lip slot. Mm-hmm. So basically going to draw out that. And when you go to the lip, you're going to really need to think about the angle. And that's another thing that's kind of a trial and error process. Not only the shape and the length and the size, but also the angle in which that it's going in is really going to determine how that bait swims. Because there's some that I've made that did absolutely nothing in the water, or some that would just trail straight up to their side, and break the surface, and they wouldn't do that. Then also another major key factor is weight. You have to weight your lures in order for them to sit properly in the water, because if you don't put weight in it and you have just your hooks on it, it's going to sit possibly sideways in the water.
Yeah.
So you want to put weight in the belly, and you got to figure out how much weight is too much weight or what is enough. If you want it to sink, you can put a lot of weight. If you want it suspended, you're basically going to have to add little by little and figure out what that ratio is to make it basically like sink and then kind of suspend to where it's not really floating or sinking, So it would basically be at the surface, and then once you dive it, it's going to sit, directly maybe a foot under the water. And so, there's so many directions that you can take, your own lures, and just understanding that process, the more you do it, definitely will give you an overall understanding of what you can make and, what's easy and what's not.
No, that's all fantastic info for somebody who wants to, just get started making wooden lures. Obviously with tools, this job would be a whole lot easier. I'm assuming.
Definitely. A bandsaw or a belt sander would be a godsend for me, but that's in time, but right now it's more just a small hobby and an enjoyable craft, because just not only, hand carving, the wood and designing something that is, enjoyable on its own, but then you get to paint it, you get to choose your paint scheme, and, you get to meticulously pick out what you're going to do for the paint scheme and stuff like that. So
yeah, that there's so much thought and detail that go into it. And I really appreciate how much time it actually takes to make one of those. There's a lot there.
Yeah. So, I could easily spend 2 weeks on a single lure,
Wow.
So,
well, no, I really believe that. That's wild.
Doing it by hand, at least. Now, if you have power tools, you can get them done in a day. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So for me, it's something I'm doing in between work. I work 6 days a week, most weeks. So I'm, get an hour lunch break, come home, work on it for 45 minutes, you only kind of get one process done a day, at least in my shoes, so.
No, that's awesome. I love that we kind of went over that, because I think that's a hobby that I think anybody could pick up. And I feel like anybody who has kids, that this would be a really cool hobby to do with their kids, especially if they're obviously in the fishing world. That would be a really enjoyable thing to just pick up and kind of go with and just roll with it. So I think that would be a great recommendation for, for dads or moms who take their kids fishing and want to do something else with them. So it's a cool project regardless. And power tools are a huge bonus.
Yes, that they are.
No, that's awesome, man. Well, I think that's a great kind of recap on what you've learned and how somebody else can kind of get into it. Can you tell everybody listening where they can find a little bit more about you and where they can follow you?
Yeah. If you can look up Brandon James or on Instagram, or Tatum Tackle and Fishing, you can look that up on Instagram. It should pull up my page. Right now I got like kind of a bluish painting picture, which that's bound to change by the time people see that. But also have a YouTube channel where I do some pickerel fishing and I just did a how-to video on a puffer fish. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, so how to basically clean a puffer fish, because I mean a lot of people have the misconception that it's toxic, but that's only in Japan. So the northern puffer fish is the one that I did it on. But yeah, just a couple of videos up there, but any added support would be awesome. So
What's your channel so people can find you there?
You should find it under Tatum Tackle and Fishing.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome, awesome. Cool, man. Well, no, that's awesome. I'm gonna go check out the pufferfish video. I'm gonna eat one of them one day. Not the Japanese kind though, because that's
right. Yeah, they're kind of dangerous. So, but yeah, they're really good. Tastes like chicken.
No, I'll definitely check out your chain pickerel videos for sure, because they're definitely real common up my neck of the woods. But I want to thank you so much for coming on with us tonight. This was really cool. I love learning a little bit about wooden lures, because everybody always sees the plastic. They I never think anything else. Obviously they exist, but you never think about them. So
right.
No, this is cool. So thanks for sharing, what you've done and giving some examples, and hopefully you inspired a couple other people to maybe pick up the hobby and try a craft of their own.
Yeah, man, I definitely hope so. I was so ecstatic when I figured it out, watching Marlon Bates videos. So hopefully, it gives some people some encouragement to go out and do it themselves, because it's very enjoyable. It can be a little frustrating. Things don't work like you want sometimes, but that's never a good reason to give up. It means just try harder. It's a trial and error process sometimes when you're making things by hand. So, just enjoy your craft and have at it, have fun.
What you said right there, just because it gets hard, don't give up, man. 100%. I'm right there with you. No, well, thank you again, Brandon, for coming on, man. We're going to go ahead and call this one the end. So thanks, guys, for tuning in.
All right.